Albert Einstein. Curious mind. Big questions. Learn English through story. Have you ever looked at the sky and asked yourself, why does the universe work this way? Or maybe you wondered, why am I here and what can my mind discover? This is the story of a boy who asked many questions. A boy who was slow to speak but fast to think. A boy who grew into a man who changed science forever. This is the story of Albert Einstein, a curious mind, a gentle heart, and a person who believed that imagination is more important than knowledge. Take a deep breath. Open your mind. Let's travel through his life, step by step. And together, let's learn English through story. The year is 1879. In the city of Ulm in Germany, a baby cries softly. His parents, Hermann and Pauline, look at him with love. He looks like any other baby, but one thing is different. His head is a little larger than normal. The doctor says, "Do not worry, he will be fine." And he is. But no one in that room knows that this baby will one day explain how light travels, how time bends, how energy hides inside everything, and how the universe can surprise us. But before he becomes a genius, he is simply a quiet child, sitting alone, thinking, watching, and wondering. This is where our story begins. Part 1. The Quiet Boy. Albert Einstein was not like other children. He did not speak much when he was young. In fact, he spoke so little that his parents became worried. Will he ever talk? They wondered. But Albert was not silent because he was slow. He was silent because he was thinking. He watched the world carefully, as if every object had a secret and every moment had a message. He often sat alone in the corner of the room playing with simple toys. But these toys were not simple to him. He looked at them with deep interest, studying how they moved, how they balanced, how they fell. One day, when Albert was 5 years old, he became sick and had to stay in bed. His father, Hermann, came into the room and gave him something small and shiny. It was a compass. Albert held it in his little hand. He turned it, he moved it, he shook it gently, but the needle always pointed in the same direction, north. Albert's eyes opened wide. Why does it always point that way?" he asked. It was the first big question of his life, a question that woke something inside him. He asked his father, "What is inside the compass? Who tells the needle where to go?" His father smiled. "There is something we cannot see," he said. "A force." Albert repeated the word slowly. A force. He did not understand everything, but he felt something important. There were invisible things in the world, things that guided, shaped, and moved life. Later in life, Albert said that the compass was the moment his curiosity woke up. From that day, the world was no longer just colors and shapes. It was a puzzle, a mystery, a place full of hidden rules waiting for someone bold enough to ask, why? A strange school life. As Albert grew older, he continued to ask questions. Many questions, too many questions. His teachers did not like it. One teacher even said, "Einstein, you will never succeed. You ask too many questions." But Albert did not stop. School was difficult for him, not because he was slow, but because he learned in a different way. He liked ideas, he liked imagination, he liked thinking, but he did not like memorizing facts or repeating information without understanding it. When the teacher said, "Here are the rules of physics," Albert thought, "But why?" When the teacher said, "This is how electricity works," Albert wondered, "How do we know?" He once told a friend, "School is like a prison. They want you to think the same way, but I want to fly with my mind." He did not enjoy the strict German school system. It was rigid, controlling, and narrow. But at home, his mother and father supported him. His mother played the piano, and Albert loved music. His father and uncle talked about science, electricity, and inventions. Little by little, Albert began to build a world in his mind, a world of numbers, music, shapes, and questions. He was different. But in his difference, there was something beautiful. The magic of imagination. One day, when Albert was around 16, he had a strange and exciting thought. What if I could ride on a beam of light? He imagined. What would I see? What would happen to time? What would happen to space? Most people never think of such a question, but Albert was not most people. He closed his eyes and imagined himself flying through the sky at the speed of light. Everything around him felt strange. Time moved differently. Colors changed. Shapes bent. He did not know it yet, but this small imagination would later help him create one of the most famous ideas in science, the theory of relativity. But for now, he was just a young man with a dreamy mind, looking for a place where he could learn freely. He soon discovered that to grow, he needed to leave Germany, and that decision was waiting for him just around the corner. Part 2. Leaving Home, Finding Freedom. A new beginning in Switzerland. Albert was 16 when he made one of the most important decisions of his young life. He left Germany. Why? Because he felt trapped. The German school system was strict and heavy. Students had to obey without question. Teachers demanded discipline, silence, and respect. But Albert wanted curiosity, creativity, and freedom. One day, a teacher said to him, "You will never amount to anything, Einstein." Albert quietly picked up his books, walked out of the classroom, and decided he would not return. His family understood his struggle. They knew he was not a bad student. He was simply different. So his mother and father supported his plan to move to Switzerland, a country known for more open thinking and more flexible schools. Albert boarded a train alone. He looked out the window as the landscape passed by. Green fields, small villages, tall trees, and long, quiet moments of thought. He felt nervous but also excited. A new country, a new school, a new chance to grow. The train moved forward, and so did his life. The Swiss School of Freedom. In Switzerland, Albert joined a different kind of school. The teachers were kinder. The students were more curious. The environment felt lighter, calmer, more encouraging. Albert finally felt safe to think in his own way. He made a few close friends, and they often walked together after class, talking about music, philosophy, and mathematics. One friend later said, Albert thought about ideas in a way no one else did. Albert loved math. Numbers were not cold or boring to him. They were alive. They were like music, full of rhythm, patterns, and hidden beauty. He often stayed up late at night, reading books about geometry and physics. He once said, "When I read a book about science, it feels like I am talking to nature itself." He worked hard on subjects he loved and ignored subjects he disliked. This made his grades strange, excellent in math and physics, average or poor in others. But teachers noticed something special. Albert was not just memorizing, he was understanding. They saw that he had a rare mind, deep, imaginative, and independent. The birth of his first dream. During these years, Albert continued to think about his strange and beautiful question. What would it be like to ride on a beam of light? Most people forget childhood questions. Albert never did. He kept asking, kept imagining, kept exploring. He filled notebooks with drawings and formulas. He wrote letters about ideas that seemed impossible. He thought about problems that most adults never considered. His mind was always moving, always flying, always searching for answers. One night, while looking at the stars, he whispered to himself, "Someday I will understand how light works." This dream stayed with him for the rest of his life. A special friendship. During his time in Switzerland, Albert formed an important friendship with a young woman named Mileva Merrick. She was one of the few women who studied physics at the time. She was smart, quiet, and strong. She loved science, just like Albert. They often studied together, talked for hours, and shared ideas late into the evening. Albert felt happy. For the first time, he met someone who understood the way his mind worked. They both believed in equality. They both believed in thinking freely. They both believed that science could change the world. No one knows exactly how much Mileva influenced Albert's ideas, but many historians believe that their long discussions helped shape some of his early thinking. Together, they were not just students. They were partners in curiosity. Graduation, but no job. Albert eventually graduated from the Zurich Polytechnic School. He was ready to become a physicist, a teacher, and a contributor to science. But life surprised him. He sent applications to many universities, but no one accepted him. Why? Because Albert often skipped classes and argued with professors. They knew he was brilliant, but they did not want to recommend him. One professor even wrote a letter that said, "Einstein lacks discipline." And so Albert waited and waited and waited. Months passed, no job. He felt discouraged but not defeated. He was poor but hopeful. He lived in small, cheap rooms. Sometimes he ate only bread and tea. But he had something that kept him strong. His mind, his curiosity, his love for big questions. He continued reading books, solving problems, and thinking about light and space. He did not know it yet, but something extraordinary was coming. A door would open soon. A job would appear. A new chapter would begin. And in that new chapter, Albert Einstein would change science forever. The unexpected job. One day, Albert received a message. It was from the Swiss Patent Office in the city of Bern. They had a position open for a technical expert, someone who would look at inventions and decide if they were new or useful. It was not a university job. It was not a research position. It had nothing to do with becoming a famous scientist. But Albert smiled when he read the letter. "It is work," he said, "and work gives me time. Time to think, time to study, time to explore the universe in his mind." He accepted the job, packed his bags, and moved to Bern. He did not know it, but this simple job in a quiet office would give birth to some of the greatest ideas in human history. Part 3, the Patent Office Years, the Seeds of Genius. A quiet office, a loud mind. The Swiss Patent Office in Bern was not a glamorous place. There were no big laboratories, no machines, no famous scientists walking around. It was a small, quiet room with wooden desks, paper files, and long hours of reading inventions. To many people, it was boring work. But to Albert Einstein, it was a blessing in disguise. The job was calm, predictable, steady. He finished his tasks quickly, sometimes faster than his colleagues expected. He wrote notes, reviewed diagrams, and checked if inventions were new or copied. But here is the secret. Albert's real work happened after he finished his job. Every day, after lunch, he entered a different world, a world inside his mind. The Olympia Academy. 3 friends, big ideas. During his evenings, Albert met with 2 friends, Conrad Habicht and Maurice Solovine. They formed a small group with a funny name, the Olympia Academy. There were no computers, no phones, just young men, big ideas, and cheap food. They met in Albert's small apartment, which often smelled like old books and coffee. They read papers from great thinkers. They argued about philosophy. They discussed life, time, science, and the universe. Albert loved these meetings. They made him feel alive, as if he was exploring a mountain of ideas with good friends by his side. One evening he said, "My mind feels free when we talk. There are no walls here." They laughed, they studied, and they dreamed. But Albert did something more, something deeper, something secret. At night, after everyone went home, he stayed awake. The room was dark and silent, but inside his head there was fire. This fire would soon become the most important year of his life. The miracle year begins. The year was 1905. Albert Einstein was 26 years old. He was still working at the patent office, still unknown, still earning a small salary. But inside him, the universe was changing. In that one single year, Albert wrote 4 papers that changed science forever. Today, scientists call 1905 Annus Mirabilis the miracle year. Let's explore what happened. Paper 1. Light as tiny packets. Albert's first idea was revolutionary. He suggested that light was not just a wave, but also little packets of energy called quanta. This idea helped create modern physics and would later win him the Nobel Prize. But at the time, many scientists thought he was wrong. Albert did not argue with them. He simply said, "Let the experiments decide." And they did. Years later, experiments proved that he was right. Paper 2. Shaking Atoms. His second paper explained a strange movement seen under a microscope. It showed that tiny particles move in water because they are pushed by even tinier molecules. This confirmed that atoms are real. Before that, some scientists were not sure. Einstein helped remove the doubt with clear, beautiful mathematics. Paper 3. Time is not the same everywhere. Now we come to his third idea, an idea that changed the world. Albert asked himself, what if time is not fixed? What if time moves differently for different people depending on how fast they move? This became the beginning of the special theory of relativity. He imagined 2 clocks, one moving fast, one standing still. He discovered that time slows down for the moving clock. This was shocking. It sounded impossible. But Albert's math showed that it must be true. Scientists were surprised. Some were confused. Others were amazed. But slowly the world began to understand. Einstein had discovered a new way to see reality. Paper 4. Energy and mass are the same. The final paper in 1905 contained one simple equation. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. It is one of the most famous equations in human history. It means that mass and energy are not separate things. They are 2 forms of the same thing. It means that tiny things can hold enormous power. It means that the universe is full of hidden energy. Albert wrote the equation in quiet evenings after work. He had no laboratory, no assistants, no money, only imagination, only courage, only curiosity. Music, love, and life in Bern. During these years, Albert often played the violin. Music helped him think. It helped him relax. It brought him joy. He once said, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician." He also married Mileva, the woman he studied with in Zurich. They had 2 sons, Hans and Eduard. Life was not easy. Money was tight. Work was tiring. And raising children was challenging. But Albert continued dreaming and thinking in every free moment. He believed deeply that ideas mattered, that questions mattered, that imagination mattered. and slowly the world started to notice him. A letter that changed everything. In 1909, Albert received an unexpected invitation. A professor from the University of Zurich wrote to him, "Einstein, we have read your papers. Your ideas are important. Would you like to join us as a professor of physics?" Albert stared at the letter. For a moment he could not breathe. A university wanted him, a real one. At last, he ran to tell Mileva. They hugged, laughed, and celebrated. The young man who left Germany, who struggled to find a job, who worked in a small office, who dreamed about light, was finally recognized. A new stage begins. Albert packed his things, said goodbye to the patent office, and walked out of the building one last time. He looked back, smiled softly, and whispered, "This place gave me time. This place gave me ideas." Then he stepped forward into a new chapter of life. Einstein the professor, Einstein the thinker, Einstein the rising star. The world had no idea how much more he would discover, but Albert knew he was just getting started. Part 4. Bending light, bending space, bending history. Einstein becomes a professor. Albert Einstein walked into his first classroom as a university professor with quiet steps and a shy smile. He was not like other professors. He did not wear fancy clothes. He did not stand with a loud, serious voice. He did not try to look important. Instead, he walked in with messy hair, a relaxed body, and eyes full of curiosity. Students were surprised at first. This man was famous for his ideas, yet he looked like a friendly neighbor who might stop to help you fix a bicycle. But when he spoke, everything changed. His voice was gentle, but his ideas were powerful. He talked about time as if it could stretch and shrink. He talked about space as if it could bend like rubber. He talked about light as if it was a traveler with secrets in its pockets. His students sat in silence, their minds wide open. One student later said, "Einstein made us feel that we were standing at the edge of something new. He was not just teaching physics, he was teaching imagination." The idea that needed proof. Even though Einstein's ideas were brilliant, many scientists still did not fully believe him. They asked questions. How can space bend? How can time slow down? How can the universe work differently from what we see every day? Einstein understood their doubts. His ideas were strange, bold, and sometimes even unsettling. He wrote more papers, explained more equations, and gave more talks. But something was missing: proof. A theory, no matter how beautiful, must be tested by nature. Einstein knew this, and he waited patiently. He believed the universe would one day show that his imagination was not just fantasy. And one day, it did. The solar eclipse that changed the world. Imagine the year 1919. Europe was recovering from the terrible First World War. People were tired, countries were broken, and hope felt far away. But a group of British scientists led by Sir Arthur Eddington traveled to two places, the island of Principe in Africa and the city of Sobral in Brazil. They were chasing something rare, a total solar eclipse. Why? Because Einstein had predicted something extraordinary. Light from stars should bend when it passes close to the sun. Space itself, Einstein said, was curved by gravity. During an eclipse, the sky becomes dark and stars near the sun become visible. If their light appears in a different position than usual, it means the sun's gravity bent the starlight, just like Einstein predicted. So the scientists waited. And on May 29, 1919, the sky darkened. The moon covered the sun. The stars shone faintly around the black circle. Photographs were taken. Measurements were made. And when the scientists returned home and studied the results, their hearts began to race. The starlight had bent. Exactly as Einstein predicted, the universe had spoken, and it whispered, Einstein was right. Overnight fame. Newspapers across the world printed shocking headlines. Lights all askew in the heavens. Einstein's theory proved true. Revolution in science. Universe not what we thought. A new Newton is born. And suddenly, everything changed. Albert Einstein, a quiet man from the patent office, became the most famous scientist on the planet. People stopped him on the street. Reporters knocked on his door. Photographers took pictures without asking. He traveled to many countries, the United States, Japan, France, England. People filled lecture halls just to see him. Some came to listen. Some came just to look at his wild hair. Einstein laughed and said, "After the eclipse, I became a celebrity. Yesterday, I was only a humble scientist." But fame did not change him. He stayed simple, gentle, and deeply curious. A life of challenges. Even with his fame, Einstein's life was not easy. His marriage with Mileva became difficult. They argued often. They lived in different worlds, one full of science, one full of sadness. They eventually separated and later divorced. Einstein felt guilt, loneliness, and confusion, but he never stopped caring for his sons. He wrote to Hans, his eldest son, "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving." This sentence would later become one of his most famous quotes. A second chance at happiness. In time, Einstein found comfort with his cousin Elsa, a kind woman who understood his needs. She managed his travel, protected him from reporters, and made his life calmer. Einstein often said, "Elsa saved me from drowning in chaos." She created a home where he could focus on science and peace. And he continued thinking, always thinking. The search for a bigger truth. After his great success, Einstein did not stop. He began a new journey, the search for a unified theory. He wanted to combine all the forces of nature into one beautiful idea. Gravity, light, electricity. He wanted them all to fit together like pieces of a puzzle. He wrote new equations. He stayed up at night. He filled notebooks with symbols and lines. Many scientists disagreed with his direction. Some said he was old-fashioned. Others said he was wrong. But Einstein smiled and said, "I am happy walking on the long path of truth, even if I walk alone." He believed deeply that nature has harmony, and that one day someone would discover it. Darkness rising. A world in trouble. Meanwhile, outside the world of science, danger was growing. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were rising in Germany. Einstein was Jewish, and his ideas were called unacceptable by the Nazi government. Newspapers attacked him. People threatened him. His house was watched. One German magazine even printed a list of people marked for death. Einstein's name was on the list. Next to it, someone wrote, "Not yet hanged." Einstein read the words and felt a cold shock in his heart. Germany was no longer safe. And soon, he would be forced to make one of the hardest decisions of his entire life. He would have to leave the country he once called home. Part 5. Exile, Peace, and the Final Questions. Leaving Germany behind. The year was 1933. Germany was changing fast, and not in a good way. Nazi flags hung from buildings. Soldiers marched through the streets. People were afraid to speak their minds. Einstein, being Jewish and being a world-famous thinker, became a target. One day, while he was traveling in Belgium, he received terrible news. The Nazis raided his home in Germany. They took his property. They searched his papers. They declared him an enemy. If he went back, his life would be in danger. Einstein looked out the window at the quiet Belgian sky and whispered, "My world has changed. I cannot return." He made a heavy, painful decision. He resigned his German citizenship and decided to begin a new life in a new country. A new home in America. Einstein accepted an offer from the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. When he arrived in the United States, crowds welcomed him. Reporters followed him. Children waved small American flags. People shouted, "Welcome, Professor Einstein." He smiled shyly, adjusted his old coat, and said thank you. In Princeton, he found what he needed, a peaceful place to think. His new home was simple, a small house at 112 Mercer Street. He walked to work every day, holding a notebook and wearing old, comfortable clothes. He never combed his hair. He never cared about fashion. He cared only about ideas. Einstein speaks for peace. Einstein loved freedom. He loved open thinking. He loved kindness and human dignity. The rise of fascism in Europe made him deeply worried. He became a strong voice for peace and human rights. He wrote letters, he gave speeches, he signed petitions, he met world leaders. He said, "Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved through understanding." He encouraged nations to cooperate, not fight. But he also faced a difficult contradiction. In 1939, He learned that German scientists might be trying to build a powerful new weapon, a nuclear bomb. Einstein feared what the Nazis could do with such power. So he signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning him about the danger and suggesting that the U.S. should begin its own research. This letter helped start the Manhattan Project, the program that eventually created the first atomic bombs. Einstein did not work on the project. He did not design weapons. But he regretted his small, indirect role. When the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein felt heartbroken. He said, "I made one great mistake in my life when I signed that letter." From that day on, he fought even harder for peace. The Final Search, a Unified Theory. Even in his later years, Einstein continued thinking about the deepest mysteries of the universe. He wanted to find a single equation that explained everything: gravity, electricity, magnetism, all the forces of nature in one beautiful formula. He called it the Unified Field Theory. Many scientists disagreed with his approach. Some said he was stuck in the past. Some said he was ignoring new discoveries. But Einstein did not stop. He walked alone through fields of mathematics, searching for harmony. He once said, "I want to know God's thoughts. The rest is details." His search continued until the end of his life. He never found the full answer, but his work inspired future generations to continue the journey. Einstein the human: humor, kindness, and simplicity. Behind the genius, there was a warm, funny man. He loved children. He loved jokes. He loved sailing, even though he was not very good at it, and often fell into the water. He wore old sweaters and no socks. He let his hair grow wild. He disliked fame. He preferred quiet evenings with a violin in his hands. He treated everyone kindly: students, neighbors, strangers. If a child asked for an autograph, he always said yes. If someone asked him to explain his theory in simple words, he smiled and tried his best. He once said, "If you cannot explain something in simple terms, you do not understand it well enough." His life was a lesson in humility. The final day. On April 17, 1955, Einstein felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Doctors discovered that an artery inside him was bleeding. They asked if he wanted surgery. Einstein shook his head. "No," he said. "It is time to go. I have done my share." He spent his last hours with quiet dignity. A nurse asked if he wanted something. He said softly, "I want to work until the end." Next to his bed was a sheet of paper with equations, his final attempt to understand the universe. Just before midnight, his breath slowed. The curious mind that had changed the world became still. Albert Einstein passed away peacefully at the age of 76. The legacy lives on. Today, Einstein's ideas shape our understanding of the universe: time dilation, black holes, E equals mc squared, the bending of space, the behavior of light, the birth of the universe. GPS satellites, nuclear energy, modern physics, all of these exist because one man refused to stop asking why. But his greatest lesson is not about science. His greatest lesson is this: stay curious, ask questions, think for yourself, use your imagination, and never stop wondering about the world. The universe is full of mysteries. Einstein showed us that every mystery begins with a simple question. Epilogue, the sky that never stopped moving. The story of Albert Einstein may sound like the story of a genius, but at its heart, it is the story of a curious human being. A boy who looked at a compass and wondered why the needle moved. A teenager who dreamed of riding on a beam of light. A young man who challenged old ideas with new imagination. A scientist who saw the universe not as a machine, but as a mystery to love and explore. A refugee who ran from danger yet still believed in peace. A thinker who searched for harmony in nature even when many people doubted him. Einstein did not have a perfect life. He made mistakes. He suffered. He worried. He loved. He lost. But through all of it, his mind stayed open, his heart stayed gentle, and his questions stayed alive. And because of that, the world became bigger, stranger, and more beautiful. Now, as you finish this story, take one last look at the night sky, the stars, the moon, the darkness, the silence. Somewhere out there, light is bending, space is stretching, time is moving differently. And in a small corner of history, a man named Albert Einstein helped us see it. The universe is full of secrets. Your mind is full of keys. Moral lesson: the power of wonder. Einstein teaches us one powerful truth. You do not need to be perfect to change the world. You only need curiosity. You don't need to memorize everything. You don't need to follow all the rules. You don't need to think like everyone else. You only need to stay open, to keep asking questions, to trust your imagination, and to follow the things that make your mind shine. Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." Let his story remind you that deep thinking comes from simple questions, that big discoveries begin in small, quiet moments, that imagination can open doors no one else sees, and that every learner, including you, carries a spark that can light up the world. Thank you for listening to this story on LinguaTales. If this story helped your English, helped your imagination, or helped your heart grow, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, share this story with someone who loves learning. Your support helps us create more stories for English learners all around the world. Tell us in the comments, what big question are you curious about today? We read every message and love hearing from you. Keep learning, keep dreaming, keep asking why. See you in the next story.